the Most High's 7-year covenant of mercy to his 12 Israelite tribes. Now, the Most High set up his 7-year covenant of mercy, and Yahushua fulfills the Most High's 7-year covenant of mercy by his death and resurrection. Therefore, the 7-year covenant of mercy is set up by the Most High Yahweh and fulfilled by Hamashiach Yahushua. So this is a 7-year covenant of mercy to the Most High's 12 Israelite tribes by Yahweh Yahushua. And the 7-year covenant of mercy to the Israelite nation is recorded in Daniel chapter 9. Daniel 9, verse 27. And he, Yahweh, and Yahushua shall confirm the covenant with many Israelites for 1 week. And this, Israelites, is where we stop, right here at this semicolon. And he, Yahweh Yahushua, shall confirm the covenant with many Israelites for 1 week, semicolon. And this is where we stop, right here. If we go any further beyond this semicolon, we are going to misinterpret the entire verse. So as Israelites, what we want to do is get the true meaning of verse 27 all the way up to this semicolon right here. And once we get the true meaning up to the semicolon, then we can correctly interpret the rest of the verse. With that understanding, let us find out the true interpretation of 1 week. Genesis 29, verse 27. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. 7 more years. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, 1 week or 7 days equals 7 years. And 7 years equals 7 days or 1 week. Numbers 14, verses 33 and 34. And your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years after the number of the days. Keyword days. Even 40 days. Each day for a year. Even 40 years. 1 day for 1 year. And 1 year for 1 day. Therefore, Israelites, 40 days equals 40 years. 1 day for 1 year, and 1 year for 1 day. Ezekiel 4, verses 4, 5, and 6. Verse 4, according to the number of the days. Verse 5, according to the number of the days. 390 days, which means 390 days equals 390 years. And 390 years equals 390 days. Verse 6, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day, 1 day, for a year. 1 year. Therefore, Ezekiel 4, verses 4 to 6 verifies 1 day equals 1 year, and 1 year equals 1 day. And now, Israelites, that we understand 1 day equals 1 year, and 7 days equals 7 years, and 1 week equals 7 years. Now we can get the true understanding of Daniel 9, verse 27. And he, the Most High Yahweh, and Hamashiach Yahushai shall confirm the covenant with many Israelites for 7 years. So the 12 tribes of Israel are under a covenant by Yahweh Yahushai for 7 years. And now that we understand, we are under a 7-year covenant by Yahweh Yahushai for 7 years. Let us find out what the covenant is that the Israelites are under for 7 years. Daniel 9, verse 4 of the same chapter. Keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him, and to them, the Israelites, that keep his commandments. Key words: covenant and mercy. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, we are under a covenant of mercy. That is the covenant we are under by Yahweh Yahushai. We are under a 7-year covenant of mercy. And that, Israelites, is why Yahushai has not cracked the sky yet. We are under a 7-year covenant of mercy set up by the Most High Yahweh and is being fulfilled by Hamashiach Yahushai. Now, let us verify who the 7-year covenant of mercy is going to. Verse 7, O Most High, righteousness belongeth unto thee, as at this day, to the men of Judah, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the southern kingdom, and unto all Israel, the northern kingdom, to the southern and the northern kingdoms, all 12 tribes of Israel. This, Israelites, verifies the 7-year covenant of mercy of Yahweh Yahushai goes to the 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 9, to the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness. This is what we are under, Israelites. We are under a 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness by Yahweh Yahushai. The 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness is given to the 12 tribes of Israel, according to Scripture. Now, the Gentiles, they are under a promise of pain, 7 years of it. The 12 Israelite tribes are under a 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness by Yahweh Yahushai. And the nations of the Gentiles are under a 7-year promise of pain, of great tribulation to all the Gentile nations combined. Now, to the 12 tribes of Israel, since we are already in Daniel chapter 9, verse 9, and the truth of this verse is staring me in my face, I'm going to reveal to you a secret. I'm going to go ahead and reveal to you a very, very, very important piece of extremely high level truth. A very important piece of hyper level truth that is contained in verse 9. This is a very, very, very high level piece of truth that has not yet been revealed to the 12 tribes of Israel. But because the truth of this verse is staring me in the face, I'm going to go ahead and reveal this secret hyper level truth that has been hidden from the 12 tribes of Israel by our enemies from day one, since our enemies enslaved us in chains. And this is the secret. Daniel 9, verse 9. To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness. Now, who is the Lord our God? Is it just the Most High Yahweh? Well, let's break down this verse and find out. To the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai belong mercies and forgivenesses. Now let's break that down again, Israelites. To the Most High Yahweh belong mercies, or the mercies of the Most High. And to Hamashiach Yahushai belong forgivenesses of sins. Daniel 9, verse 9 verifies that the Lord our God is referencing the mercies of the Most High Yahweh and the forgivenesses of sins of Hamashiach Yahushai in a 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel by the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai. It verifies the Lord our God is in fact Yahweh wa Yahushai, and that our enemies who enslaved us hid this truth from us by translating Yahweh wa Yahushai to Lord our God. The Lord our God is referencing both the mercy of the Most High Yahweh and the forgiveness of sins of Hamashiach Yahushai. The Lord our God has set up a 7-year covenant of mercy of the Most High Yahweh and the forgiveness of sins of Hamashiach Yahushai to the 12 tribes of Israel. And that, Israelites, is the fullness of understanding in Daniel 9, verse 9. And Daniel 9, verse 9 is also referencing the Most High Yahweh as our Lord and Hamashiach Yahushai as our God. Now, to really understand the Lord our God, it is necessary to understand that Lord and God is interchangeable between the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai, because the Most High Yahweh is also God and Hamashiach Yahushai is also Lord. Therefore, Israelites, the fullness of understanding of Lord our God is this: the Most High Yahweh is both Lord and God, and Hamashiach Yahushai is both Lord and God. The Most High Yahweh is over Hamashiach Yahushai, and Hamashiach Yahushai is under the Most High Yahweh, but they are both Lord and God. So hopefully, to the 12 tribes of Israel, you now have the hidden truth of the Lord our God, which is referencing both Yahweh while Yahweh Shai. Moving on to verse 11. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law. This is verifiable proof in verse 11 that the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness is sent to all Israel, the entire 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Therefore, the curse is poured upon us. And the curse that this is referencing, Israelites, is all the curses of Deuteronomy 28, specifically in verse 68, where the Israelites will go back into bondage again with ships, and we will be sold unto our enemies, the Gentiles, for slave men and slave women. And nobody is going to save us, which goes back to the curse that Daniel 9, verse 11 is talking about. Therefore, the curse of Deuteronomy 28 is poured upon us, the 12 tribes of Israel, which also means the mercies and forgivenesses of the 7-year covenant is given to the 12 tribes of Israel. And the oath that is written in the law of Moses. This also verifies that the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness is given to the 12 tribes of Israel, who was also given the law of Moses. So I'm proving to you, Israelites, that the 7-year covenant of mercies and forgivenesses is given to the 12 tribes of Israel. Genesis 15, verse 14. I'm going to bring out one more piece of truth in this verse. And afterward shall they, the 12 tribes of Israel, come out of the nations of the Gentiles with great substance. When Yahushua cracks the sky, we are going to get some rewards, but we're not going to get all of our rewards until after the 7-year great tribulation to the Gentiles ends. Therefore, Israelites, when Yahushua cracks the sky at the beginning of the 7-year tribulation, we get some rewards. But when the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai cracks the sky at the end of the 7-year tribulation to the Gentiles, then we get all of our rewards. So we get rewards at the beginning and the end of the 7-year great tribulation to the Gentiles. And now, Israelites, we are back in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. And now that we have the true understanding of this verse before the semicolon, this time we're going to break down all of this verse. And he, the Most High Yahweh, and Hamashiach Yahushua shall confirm the covenant of mercy and forgiveness with many of the 12 tribes of Israel for 7 years. Now, everything before the semicolon is dealing with the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel. And after the semicolon, everything after the semicolon is dealing with 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles. Let's break that down. And in the midst of the week, in the middle of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, he, Yahushua, shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. How? How is Yahushua going to cause the sacrifice to cease in the middle of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles? This is how he's going to cause it to cease. Before the semicolon, at the end of the 7 years of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel, Yahushua cracks the sky to take up his elect. Then the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles begins. And in the middle of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, at the 3.5-year period, Yahushua cracks the sky to take up his elect again, which will cause the sacrifice in Israel to cease. And that, Israelites, is how Yahushua stops the sacrifice, by cracking the sky in the middle of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles at the 3.5-year period to take up repentant Israelites out of great tribulation at the 3.5-year period of punishment to the Gentiles. And after Yahushua cracks the sky at the 3.5-year period of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, to take up repentant Israelites, this is what happens at the remainder of the 3.5 years that are left. And for the overspreading of abominations, he, Yahushua, shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation. That means utter destruction. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. This means at the end of the 7-year period of great tribulation to the Gentiles, at the end of the second half of the 3.5-year period of great tribulation to the Gentiles, Yahushua cracks the sky a third time to take up repentant Israelites out of great tribulation to the Gentiles. Then he utterly destroys and makes desolate all the nations of the Gentiles combined, even to the consummation, even to the utter destruction of all the nations of the Gentiles combined. And that determined is the utter destruction of all the nations of the Gentiles, shall be poured upon the desolate. The desolate in this case is all the nations of the Gentiles destroyed to utter consummation, to utter destruction. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, what we have in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 is a full-on secret hidden code of Yahushai's 3 returns: before, during, and after the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles. Daniel 9, verse 27 is verifiable proof of Yahushai's 3 returns: before the semicolon, which is at the end of the 7 years of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel. That is Yahushai's first return. And Yahushua returns again a second time at the 3.5-year period in the middle of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles. This is Yahushua's second return. Wherefore his second return will cause the sacrifice and the oblation in Israel to cease. And after Yahushua's second return, Yahushua returns again a third time at the end of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles to pour out upon all the Gentile nations utter destruction, to make them desolate, so that Yahushua can set up his 1,000-year reign. And before Yahushua sets up his 1,000-year reign, he must first utterly destroy all the nations of the Gentiles, to utter desolation, to consume all the nations by fire, to utter desolation. To the 12 tribes of Israel, Yahushua's return 3 times to take up repentant Israelites is the hidden truth of Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. To the 12 tribes of Israel, there is a higher level secret, a higher level truth regarding the covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, I'm going to explain to you a very high level piece of truth regarding this covenant. When the 7-year tribulation to the Gentiles takes place on the earth, during the 7-year tribulation to the Gentiles on the earth, the third new covenant with the Israelites will take place in the heavens with the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. Understand that Yahushua is also included in the third new covenant to the Israelites of the Most High. So when this third covenant takes place, it's going to take place by the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. Now, the first covenant of the Most High to the Israelites was the law. The second covenant of the Most High to the Israelites is faith in Yahushua. The third new covenant of the Most High to the 12 tribes of Israel is a new covenant by the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. And this third new covenant is going to take place in a 7-year period by the Father and the Son to the 12 tribes of Israel in the heavens during the 7-year great tribulation of the Gentiles on the earth. So while the Gentiles are suffering in their 7 years of great tribulation on the earth, the elect Israelites are going to be in the heavens in that 7-year period, confirming the third new covenant of the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, let's bring out the secret hidden truth of the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness. And this is the secret. We are already in the preliminary stages of Yahweh Yahweh's third new covenant, because we are in a 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness. What I'm trying to reveal to you, Israelites, is this. The third new covenant to the Israelites by Yahweh Yahushua begins with the 7 years of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel. We are in the preliminary stages of Yahweh Yahweh's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel. So while we have been down here this 7 years of this 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness, we are already in the preliminary stages of Yahweh Yahush's third new covenant to the Israelites. Now that you understand that secret, there is yet another secret, a very well hidden secret in the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of Yahweh Yahushua. And I'm about to reveal to you that deeper secret. So let's bring out this additional secret hidden truth that is very well hidden in the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. Isaiah 42, verse 6. I, the Most High Yahweh, have called thee, Hamashiach Yahushua, in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee. And I, the Most High Yahweh, will give thee, Hamashiach Yahushua, for a covenant of the people. The people are the Israelites, the chosen seed, the 12 tribes of Israel. The Most High Yahweh is giving to the people, the 12 tribes of Israel, Hamashiach Yahushua, for a covenant of the 12 tribes of Israel. So to my Israelite brothers and sisters, understand this. The secret of the Most High's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel is this. The Most High Yahweh is giving to the 12 tribes of Israel, Hamashiach Yahushua, for a third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel. Yahushua is a significant part of the Most High's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel. In other words, Yahushua is the Most High's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel. And now, Israelites, that we understand Yahushua is the Most High's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel, there is a deeper hidden truth of the Most High's third new covenant of Yahushua to the 12 tribes of Israel. Isaiah 42, verse 6. I, the Most High Yahweh, have called thee, Hamashiach Yahushua, in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee. And I, the Most High Yahweh, will give thee, Hamashiach Yahushua, for a covenant, a third new everlasting covenant of the 12 tribes of Israel for a light of truth of the Gentiles. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, what does that mean? A light of the Gentiles. This is what it means. The 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness is given to and named to the 12 tribes of Israel, of the southern kingdom of the house of Judah, and the northern kingdom of the house of Israel, of the Israelites of the 12 tribes of Israel. It is true, very true, that the third new covenant of the Most High goes to the 12 tribes of Israel, by which it is named, to the house of Judah and the house of Israel. In addition, Israelites, because the Most High has given Yahushua in the Most High's third new covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel as a light of the Gentiles, this means the secret hidden truth of Yahushua as a light of the Gentiles is this: the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness is given to the 12 tribes of Israel first by the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua. However, because Yahushua is a light of the Gentiles, the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of the 12 tribes of Israel is also extended to the Gentiles that are called by the Most High Yahweh and serve Hamashiach Yahushua. And that, Israelites, is a deeper, higher level secret hidden truth, that the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua to the 12 tribes of Israel is also extended to the Gentiles that are called by the Most High Yahweh and serve Hamashiach Yahushua. In other words, the Gentiles that are called, which are the handmaids and servants, piggyback off the 7-year covenant of mercy to the 12 tribes of Israel. The Gentiles that are called by the Most High Yahweh and serve Hamashiach Yahushua to the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of the 12 tribes of Israel are handmaids and servants that cleave to the house of Jacob under the third new covenant of Yahweh Yahushua as handmaids and servants to the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua and the 12 tribes of Israel. So the understanding of Yahushua as a light of the Gentiles is they are added to the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness of the Israelites by Yahushua as handmaids and servants to the 12 tribes of Israel. And that, Israelites, is the fullness of understanding of Isaiah 42, verse 6. Luke chapter 2, verse 32. Yahushua, a light to lighten the handmaids and servants, Gentiles, and the glory of the kingdom of heaven of thy people, the 12 tribes of Israel. In other words, Israelites, the Most High Yahweh sent Hamashiach Yahushua as a third everlasting covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the Israelite rulers and the Gentile handmaids and servants, which means Hamashiach Yahushai is the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness that the Most High sent to the 12 tribes of Israel first, then the Gentile handmaids and servants second, that the handmaids and servants that are called of the Most High and serve Hamashiach Yahushai should serve the people of the 12 tribes of Israel in the glory of the kingdom of heaven, which belongs to the people of the 12 tribes of Israel. So to my Israelite brothers and sisters, the true understanding of Luke chapter 2, verse 32 is this: the Most High Yahweh has sent Hamashiach Yahushai to prepare our Gentile handmaids and servants to serve the 12 tribes of Israel in the kingdom of heaven of the 12 tribes of Israel. And that, Israelites, is the true understanding of the secret hidden truth of Luke chapter 2, verse 32. Romans 11, verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Verse 26 is referencing the kingdom of heaven belongs to the house of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. For this is the Most High Yahweh, and Hamashiach Yahushai, third everlasting covenant of mercy and forgiveness unto them, the 12 tribes of Israel, the house of Jacob, when I shall take away their sins. Verse 27 is repeating the third everlasting covenant of mercy and forgiveness is given to the 12 tribes of Israel, the house of Jacob, first. Verse 28 is talking to the Gentiles and telling the Gentiles who the elect of the Most High are. As touching the elect, they, the 12 tribes of Israel, are beloved for the Father's sakes. Verse 28 is confirming the elect of the Most High Yahweh is the seed of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, and that the kingdom of heaven goes to the Israelites who are beloved for the Father's sakes. So what all of that means is this: the Gentiles and nations of the Gentiles cannot enter into the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness except by Yahushai, the deliverer, through submission to the Israelite nation of the house of Jacob, of the 12 tribes of Israel. And that, Israelites, is the unseen truth. Unless the Gentiles can submit themselves to the Israelites, the house of Jacob, by way of Hamashiach Yahushai, they cannot enter into the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness that is given to the chosen seed, the house of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. So all of these verses are saying the exact same thing. Yahushua, the Savior and King of the Jews, is preparing our Gentile handmaids and servants to the house of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, by extending the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the Gentile handmaids and servants that are called to serve the 12 tribes of Israel in the kingdom of heaven. Romans 11, verse 18 of the same chapter. This verse is talking to the Gentiles. Boast not. Do not in any way lift thyself up against the Israelite branches. But if thou, the Gentiles, boast, lift thyself up above the Israelite branches. Thou, the Gentiles that boast, bearest not the root, is not a blessing to the Israelites. But the root, the Israelites, are a blessing to thee unto the Gentiles. In other words, verse 18 is teaching the Gentiles not to lift themselves up against the seed of Jacob, because the 12 tribes of Israel are a blessing to the Gentiles, but the Gentiles are not a blessing to the Israelites. Verse 18 is teaching the Gentiles not to boast against the Israelite branches that were broken off, because the Israelites are the root of the good olive tree that blesses the Gentiles. But the Gentiles are not the root of blessing of the good olive tree of the Israelite branches. However, the Israelite branches are the root of the good olive tree that blesses the Gentiles. So what verse 18 is really teaching the Gentiles is this: do not in any way, Gentiles, boast against your blessing of the Israelite branches that are the root of the good olive tree and a blessing to the Gentile handmaids and servants. Therefore, the Gentiles are not a blessing to the Israelites, but the Israelites are a blessing to the Gentiles. In other words, we, the Israelite branches, can enter into our own heavenly kingdom without the Gentiles. But the Gentiles cannot enter into our heavenly kingdom without being added to the root of the good olive tree of the Israelite branches. So the Israelites can get to the kingdom without the Gentiles. But the Gentiles cannot get to the kingdom without the Israelites, because the Gentiles have to be added to the root of the good olive tree as handmaids and servants by Yahushua through the root of the good olive tree of the Israelite nation. Again, Israelites, if the Gentiles boast against the natural branches of the Israelites of the root of the good olive tree, then the Most High Yahweh will cut that Gentile off. But if they humble themselves to the Israelites of the root of the good olive tree, then Yahushua will allow the Gentiles that humble themselves to partake in the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel of the good olive tree. And all of that goes back to Daniel 9:27. the 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness by Yahweh Yahushai to the chosen seed of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, extended to the Gentile handmaids and servants that submit themselves to the root of the good olive tree of the Israelite nation. Therefore, Israelites, the Gentile handmaids and servants cannot, I repeat, cannot enter the kingdom without the Israelites, because the handmaids and servants of the Gentiles can only enter the kingdom with the Israelites. They cannot enter the kingdom independent on their own without the Israelites, because the Gentile handmaids and servants can only enter the kingdom of heaven by Yahushai through the 12 tribes of Israel added to the good root of the olive tree of the chosen seed of Jacob. So again, the Gentiles enter the kingdom with the Israelites, not independent of the Israelites on their own, but with the Israelites do the Gentiles enter the kingdom as handmaids and servants to the Israelite nation. And that, Israelites, explains Isaiah 14, verse 1, where Yahweh Yahushai covenants a 7-year covenant of mercy and forgiveness on the seed of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the strangers, the Gentile handmaids and servants, shall cleave to the house of Jacob and enter the kingdom, joined with the Israelites, not independent of the Israelites, but joined with the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, where the Most High Yahweh has chosen the 12 tribes of Israel to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Enoch 91, verses 10 and 11, is dealing with the 7th week, or the 7 years of mercy to the 12 tribes of Israel, recorded in Daniel 9, verse 27, where the 7 years of mercy is recorded before the semicolon. Enoch 91, verses 10 and 11, is dealing with the 7th week of mercy and forgiveness, blessed to the 12 tribes of Israel by Yahweh Yahushai. Verse 10, and the righteous are the Israelites. The righteous goes back to the book of Genesis, where the Most High imparted his righteousness to Abraham, because Abraham was about to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, in obedience to the Most High. So the righteous, which are the 12 tribes of Israel, the seed of the chosen, is recorded in the book of Genesis. Enoch 91, verses 10 and 11. And the righteous, the 12 tribes of Israel, the seed of Jacob, will rise from sleep, and wisdom will rise and will be given to them. The Israelites are going to rise from not knowing who we are to realizing our true identity. And Yahweh Yahushai is going to impart wisdom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This, Israelites, takes place in the 7 years of mercy. And after this, the roots of sin will be cut off, and the sword will destroy the sinners. Verse 11 is talking about the Gentiles and the nations of the Gentiles, which are the roots of iniquity. And the sword will destroy the sinners. The sinners are the Gentiles and the nations of the Gentiles. The righteous are the Israelites, the seed of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. And the sinners are the Gentiles and the nations of the Gentiles and the kingdoms of the Gentiles, which is represented in this verse by the roots of iniquity, which is also representing the kingdom of the sinners, which is also the kingdom of the Gentiles. The blasphemers will be cut off. The blasphemers are the nations of the Gentiles. In every place, blasphemy will be destroyed by the sword. Again, Israelites. The blasphemers are the nations of the Gentiles, which will be destroyed by the sword, as the sinners are also the nations of the Gentiles, which will be destroyed by the sword. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, the secret understanding of Enoch 91 verses 10 and 11 is this. So the Israelites are raised up in verse 10, and while the Israelites are raised up, the Gentiles are being destroyed in verse 11, in the 7 years of mercy and forgiveness to the 12 tribes of Israel. And the destruction is taking place on the Gentiles by the earthquakes and tsunamis and floods and wildfires and tornadoes and volcanoes erupting and wind and hail and rain and everything that the Most High is throwing at the Gentiles. Enoch 91 verses 12 and 13 is dealing with the 8th week of great tribulation to all the nations of the Gentiles combined. Enoch 91 verse 12. And after this there will be another week, the 8th, which is representing 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles. That of righteousness, that is dealing with the elect of Israel in the kingdom of heaven. And a sword will be given to it, to the elect Israelites, so that the righteous judgment may be executed on those who do wrong. And the sinners, the Gentiles, and the nations of the Gentiles will be handed over into the hands of the righteous. The nations of the Gentiles will be handed over into the hands of the Israelites. This is going to take place in the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles. Verse 13, and at its end, at the end of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, they, the elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, will acquire houses because of their righteousness, and a house will be built for the great King in glory forever. That means at the end of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, the 12 tribes of Israel is going to acquire all of our riches and our glory that the Most High has set up for us. And a house will be built for the great King in glory forever. The house is representing the 12 tribes of Israel on the land of our inheritance, which will be built for the great King, the Most High Yahweh, in glory forever. The Most High Yahweh is the great King in glory, and Hamashiach Yahushai is the King of Kings, And all of this is going to take place after the 7th week, in the 8th week, where the Israelites inherit the kingdom of heaven, and we are given power over the sinners, which are the nations of the Gentiles, to execute righteous judgment on all the nations of the Gentiles. And at the end of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, the Israelites will inherit their kingdom forever. And the house of Jacob will be built for the Most High Yahweh, the great King in glory, forever. And all of Enoch 91, verses 12 and 13, takes place in the 8th week of great tribulation to the Gentiles, recorded after the semicolon in Daniel 9, verse 27. Enoch 91, verse 14, is dealing with the 9th week, or the first 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign. So the 9th week is dealing with the first 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, recorded in verse 14 of Enoch 91. Verse 14, and after this, in the 9th week, which is the first 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, the righteous judgment will be revealed to the whole world. The righteous judgment is the kingdom of Yahweh Yahushai, and the 12 tribes of Israel will be revealed to the whole world, to all the nations of the Gentiles. And all the deeds of the ungodly will vanish from the whole earth. And all the deeds of the ungodly are the Gentiles, because the righteous are the Israelites. And all the deeds of the ungodly Gentile nations will vanish from the whole earth, because Yahweh Yahushai is going to destroy all the nations of the Gentiles combined. And the world of the nations of the Gentiles will be written down for destruction, and all men, all of the nations, will look to the path of uprightness. The path of uprightness is the eternal kingdom of the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai and the 12 tribes of Israel. And the world, all the nations of the Gentiles, will be written down for destruction. All the nations of the Gentiles will be destroyed completely and utterly. And after their nations are destroyed, all men, all the nations, will look to the path of uprightness. In other words, after all the nations of the Gentiles are destroyed, at the end of the 7 years of great tribulation to the Gentiles, at the beginning of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, all the nations are going to come crawling to Yahweh and Yahushai and the 12 tribes of Israel. And all of this is going to take place in the 9th week, in the first 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, recorded in Revelation 20, verse 4. And they lived and reigned with Yahushai 1,000 years. Enoch 91, verses 15 to 17, is dealing with the 10th week, or the last 7 years of the 7th part, which is Yahushai's 7th millennial reign, where the new heaven and new earth will be made in the 10th week of the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign. Enoch 91, verses 15, 16, and 17. Verse 15, and after this, after the 9th week of the first 7 years of the beginning of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, in the 10th week, at the end of the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, in the 7th part, in the 7th millennium of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, there will be an eternal judgment that will be executed on the watchers and the great eternal heaven that will spring from the midst of the angels. The great eternal heaven is dealing with the new heaven and the new earth that is going to take place in the 10th week of the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign. And the first heaven will vanish and pass away. The first heaven is the kingdoms of the Gentiles, all the nations of the Gentiles, and the kingdoms of the Gentiles, and the rulership of the Gentiles. That is the first heaven. This means that the Gentiles are in heaven on earth right now, in their kingdom, in their power, in their rulership. And the first heaven, the heaven of the kingdom of the rulership of the Gentiles, will vanish and pass away. And a new heaven and earth will appear. And a new heaven of the kingdom of the rulership of the Israelites will appear. And all the powers of heaven will shine forever with sevenfold light. All the powers of the new heaven and the new earth will shine forever with sevenfold light of the kingdom of Yahweh and Yahushai and the 12 tribes of Israel, which is all the powers of heaven, which also includes the angels of the Most High. So to the 12 tribes of Israel, in verse 16, the first heaven that will pass away is the heaven and earth and kingdom and rulership of the Gentiles. And the new heaven that will appear is the kingdom and the rulership of the Israelites, which will shine forever with sevenfold light or sevenfold truth, where the new heaven and new earth is made in the 10th week, which represents the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign. Verse 17, and after this, there will be many weeks without number forever. That is referencing the eternal kingdom of Yahweh Yahushai and the 12 tribes of Israel, in goodness and in righteousness. And from then on, sin will never again be mentioned. So this is dealing with the eternal kingdom of heaven of the Most High Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai and the 12 tribes of Israel after Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, where the new heaven and new earth is made in the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, and the eternal kingdom of heaven begins forever, where the eternal kingdom of the new heaven and new earth will be set up in the 10th week of the last 7 years of Yahushai's 1,000-year reign, recorded in Revelation 20, verse 4.